Okay, Clarke Service. All right. Good morning, everybody. It's Friday, August 6th. This is the first edition of Coach Daryl Dotson's YouTube page. This will be on YouTube later. But I'm sitting here with head coach of Clarke University, Garland Shirley, who will actually be our co-host here on the Coach Dotson YouTube page. But good morning, Coach.
Good morning. How you doing?
Doing well. I want to give a little bit of background about yourself before we get started.
Okay.
Garland Shirley, you're going to talk about this anyway, but Coach Shirley grew up in Waterloo. We were childhood friends, long time, 86, I believe, 6th grade, Jack M. Logan Junior High School, that no longer exists.
Not even there.
It's not there no more. So, what is the name of the school? Is it called?
It's George Washington Carver now, right?
George Washington Carver. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So, we got Coach Shirley on the show to share a little bit about his background. First question, Coach. You go ahead and introduce yourself, tell people who you are. But first question is, how was your childhood? Already told the people about you growing up in Waterloo, but how was your childhood like? Family, siblings, that kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, like Daryl said, like Coach Dottie said, I'm a softball coach over at Clarke University. My childhood was different. I shouldn't say it was different. My childhood was a lot similar to yours. We grew up in the inner city, Waterloo, which is different in Iowa because everybody thinks about Iowa like, cornfields and, things like that. But, in Waterloo, it was inner city basically, so mom and dad were factory workers. They worked hard, so I grew up with knowing mom and dad was going to work at 6 o'clock in the morning and get home at, 5 o'clock at night, 4 o'clock at night. So back then they had a phrase, it was called, I think it was latchkey kids or something like that. You remember that?
Yep, I do. I was one.
It was those kids who you stayed home while your parents were at work, and then you came home, locked the doors, that kind of stuff, and did what you're supposed to do, homework, but we played and messed up the house until 30 minutes before they got home, and then we would scramble to clean up, that kind of thing. I grew up just like a lot of kids in Waterloo. We had a close-knit group of friends in our neighborhood. In New York they got like boroughs. In Waterloo it's not all that different because you got these different neighborhoods. You got the Logan, neighborhood. Like you had your neighborhood up by Gates Park, and we had our neighborhood over by Bates, kind of over by Grand Elementary. And so we all had these cliques of friends and stuff like that. But really everybody in Waterloo were friends. So, it was a time where you played until the lights went out. And when the lights went out outside, you were headed home before it got, I guess, when the lights came on, you better be on your way home. So that was kind of like my childhood growing up. So.
Shoot, your parents were nice, because if I wasn't in the house when they come on, man. Ooh.
Yeah.
The switch was coming out. But that,
And we got really good at cleaning up in like 10 minutes. We could destroy the house, and that house would be spotless in like 10 minutes.
See, you had an advantage though, because you had what, 4 other siblings?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did, but growing up,
it was me. No, go ahead.
Yeah, well, growing up, so I have two brothers that are older than me, and my sister. There's like a 7-year gap. So the older 3 of us, we were the ones that we would probably be roughhousing and making a mess, while my sister and younger brother, they didn't do anything wrong yet at that time, so we just messed up the house, fought, cooked, watched TV, did all the stuff that kids do at that time. Back then on Saturday morning, though, we'd be up at the crack of dawn and watch cartoons, that kind of thing. But we knew what time to start cleaning up, pulling out the textbooks and pretending like you're doing homework, that kind of thing,
How was your you took through your childhood, how was your high school experience?
High school, I went to Waterloo East High School. We both did. Different day back then. There was a lot of pride in Waterloo for those kids that went from Logan to East High School. We couldn't wait to put on that orange and black. East High always had a reputation of being a bad school. Even to this day, people think it's a bad school. Not a bad school. It's just a diverse school. And so, back then, even now, people always associate diversity with being bad for some reason. But I love going. I absolutely loved the pride that we had in being East Side Trojans. I was a wrestler in high school. We both wrestled in high school. It was really unique. The number of athletes and the people that we graduated with that have gone on and done really good things. So I enjoyed my time at Waterloo East High School. Really wasn't focused academically when I was young. I didn't really realize the value of it until I got a little older. But after I went to East High School, I went to University of Northern Iowa. I was supposed to go to Upper Iowa with you, but my mother really wanted me to go to UNI, so I went to UNI. Tried my hand at wrestling up there, and ended up getting married, and then was married for 18 years and left UNI and moved to the Des Moines area.
So is that when, that's a good transition, is that when you got involved in coaching, or was it before that?
It was actually before that. When we were at East High School, I was 17 years old. I graduated at 17. But when I was at East High School, we had an assistant coach. His name was Bob Smith. I don't know if you remember Bob Smith.
I do.
But Bob was the head wrestling coach at Logan. And he asked me to come over and help him. So my first time coaching, I was actually 18 years old. And I was driving back and forth from Cedar Falls. And I was helping coach middle school wrestling. And ever since then, I've been coaching in some capacity.
Wow. Okay. So that's where it started. So let's take it from when you moved to Des Moines.
Mm-hmm.
You're working, you got younger kids, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have 4 children.
Yeah.
So when does coaching, and specifically, I know you coach wrestling, I know you coach some other things, yeah, but when did the softball come into play?
Okay, so yeah, like you said, when I moved to Des Moines, so first of all, I got my coaching authorization at the University of Northern Iowa when I was there. Okay, right. So I always had my authorization to coach high school, wrestling, softball, whatever. But I didn't use it because it was kind of in my back pocket. And back there, at that time, the years that you had to recertify didn't start until you used it. But because there was a gap between the time I used my high school coaching authorization and the time I actually started, I didn't actually start coaching high school softball till like 2008 or something like that. And I think I had to go back and take like one refresher course or something like that. And then my certification years started at that point. Anyway, but I started coaching, youth sports, all the time, like recreational, flag football, football, wrestling, softball. But really softball came about because my oldest daughter started playing softball in a league in Des Moines, South Des Moines Girls Softball Association down there. And yep. She was 4 or 5, and so just like a lot of other people.
That's crazy. Vanessa, yeah. What is Vanessa now? 30?
29.
That she's 4 or 5 years old. She was down there. And South Des Moines still going strong right now. As far as I know.
It is, yeah.
Good. Okay.
So I keep saying 20, but that's actually like 24 years, something like that.
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah, somewhere around there, 24 years. But you spend that time down working with. Now, keep in mind, just like a lot of other, fathers or mothers or coaches in general, you start working with your kid at a young age, and you learn as they learn. But what ended up happening was, they had the youth ball and they also had travel ball. So I started off coaching like recreational teams, and then started coaching the travel teams, and then it gets more and more serious as it goes up, and then believe it or not, at one point, you may remember this, but I was one of those guys where I'd be coaching my team, and then there'd be another team that didn't have a coach, so I coached their team too. So I'd have two teams I'd be practicing with, and then I go run over and coach this team, and then go coach this team, and so I was spending long days at the ballpark. Yeah, so
So
and we got
so during that time, did that fuel the decision to become a high school head coach?
no. Actually, at that time, I was coaching wrestling because in high school, because I was coaching wrestling over at Dowling. I don't know if you remember that.
All right.
So basically, what ended up happening was my focus was coaching. I mean, this is over years. Obviously, she was growing up and getting older and older in the league that she was in. She was on different travel teams, and so I was busy coaching those teams. But my main coaching at that time was I was going to Dowling and coaching over there, and then coaching, softball at the same time.
Right.
I didn't get really serious in coaching softball until, and it was actually because of wrestling. I don't know if I ever told you this. So Bob Dara.
Yeah.
So I was talking to Bob Dara, and I was coaching, I can't remember which team it was because we had a lot of them, but I was coaching a travel team. And, whenever I do something, you want to do it right.
Right.
So Bob Dara never wrestled.
Correct.
But this was around the time, I think his wife had passed away, and we're sitting in the wrestling room. And I asked him, man, how did you get to be such a good wrestling coach? You never even wrestled. And he told me that he studied because he was so afraid he was going to lose to somebody because they knew something he didn't know because they wrestled and he didn't. So he said he spent all of his time studying, books, videos, reading what he could read, doing anything and everything he could to make sure that his knowledge was superior so he didn't get beat because he didn't have the experience. And I played some fast pitch softball, so that's one thing. When I was a kid, I played, Optimist baseball, but, I didn't play women's fast pitch. So there was this, thought in my mind all the time that, I don't necessarily know everything about softball, so I better figure it out. So I started really studying. I mean, like really, really studying every video I could get, every book I could get. I get online, I go to look at forums, and I always kept an open mind. Most coaches, even at that level back then, they wanted to just be the person that knew everything. I didn't want to be the person that knew everything. I wanted to be the person that learned everything. You know what I mean? And so,
Right.
so I would say that my knowledge really took off, technique wise, strategy wise. I was always a good people person working with the players, but at that point, everything started to really come together. So yeah,
I remember that because I remember at one time I dropped when you was on wall.
Mhm.
I was over there all the time, but I dropped something off. You were studying. Another time I had you called me to come pick something up. You were studying.
Mhm.
So I took that to heart too, as far as in coaching wrestling and coaching softball and coaching baseball and doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that's you actually answered the question I was going to ask you because of the myth out there is that you have to play the game that you're coaching, and that's a whole nother subject, but you've already proven that's not the case.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, I mean, most people my age have either played slow pitch, fast pitch, baseball, or something. And the truth is, you can be a baseball coach and not know nothing, not know anything whatsoever about softball.
Absolutely.
Everybody thinks if I play baseball and coach softball, that's the farthest thing from the truth. At the same
Very
time,
similar games, but you're spot on. There's a difference in how you go about it. Some people would disagree, but
Well, the thing is, you got to learn how to coach the game you're coaching.
Right.
So just having played baseball doesn't translate. If that's the case, we ought to have a ton of female former fast pitch softball players coaching baseball right now. Should be the same philosophy, but it's not the same game. So you got to learn the game you're planning on coaching. One, you don't just get inherent knowledge of another sport because you play something similar to it, So, but for me, going into it, I enjoyed it. I loved it. I got into it really deeply, not just from a coaching standpoint, but from an organizational standpoint, because I went from being a part of that league to, being the president of that league. Then I was the Polk County District Commissioner for ASA softball, and I got into it from an organizational standpoint. So I started to understand structure more, and I got into some of the policy behind some of the rules of the game, stuff like that. So it was good. Then, as the older the players got, I got into high level club softball,
Right.
So we had one of the better clubs in the Midwest where we traveled, play some of the best competition. And as you play better competition, you have to get better as a coach too. So that's kind of where the growth came. So.
And the name of that club was?
It was MSA softball. It was the biggest. It was the longest running question. The parents used to laugh about it because it was MSA softball. Capital M, like the acronym MSA, right?
Yeah, correct.
But they didn't know what it stood for. And what it stood for was, I don't know if you remember, but I used to run a business, Midwest Speed and Agility, and I would sponsor teams, and the teams they would say Midwest Speed and Agility, but only thing capitalized was the M, the S, and the A, and all the other letters were small, so you couldn't see them. And then we just finally dropped the other letters and called it MSA. And we patterned our uniforms after Iowa Hawkeyes, so we were in black and gold. And I mean, we had the nicest uniforms around. Yeah, it was nice.
We're nice. I remember. I was actually a coach for that for a couple of years.
Yeah, I remember.
Okay, so how did you get your first high school job?
So my first high school coaching job. Now I spent several years in the wrestling room. There were times I worked with I go down and work out in Waterloo East, helping coach every now and then. A long time ago, I had a younger brother-in-law that wrestled up at Muscatine High School, so I spent time in the wrestling room up there. But my first coaching job was actually at Dowling, wrestling. And so
back then, that'd have been 2000.
Back in 2000, yep. They were looking for another freshman coach, and so a guy named Bob Rice was the actual freshman coach, and he had background as an athletic trainer. And I had actually come off of a ACL injury, and Bob was doing my rehab, and he was like, "Hey, man, I'm coaching wrestling out of Dowling." And he said, "I know the training side of things and the organization side of things. I need somebody who knows the technique side of things." And so I went out with him, and I ended up getting hired out there, and for 4, 5, 6 years, something like that. And because you were there a little short, I don't know if you know how I got there, but you came out there eventually and started coaching with us, and that was my foot in the door in wrestling anyway. But as far as high school softball goes, so for softball, I did the club thing for a long time. We were really successful. I enjoyed it. And then I think 2007, 2008, I was working on the fire department, and I was looking to kind of open up my time a little bit more because the commitment level for travel ball was a lot.
Right.
I still plan to do it, but I was at that point where I was looking for kind of a little bit different, more stable, challenge, at least in terms of coaching. And I was just browsing through the paper at work when I was on the fire department, and I saw that Van Meter High School was looking for a high school softball coach, and I applied for it, and I I went out, interviewed, and got hired.
And how was that? How was that experience
It
at
was,
Van Meter? What was the players like? I believe you ended up going to the state tournament during that time,
yeah,
correct?
yeah. I mean, it was a small, Van Meter's a small school, so the it was a different experience because I was, coming from the Des Moines metro area. You're used to teams or programs that had, tons and tons of kids. So you're used to like tryouts and having multiple players that could play multiple positions and things like that. In Van Meter, it was a small community, a small team. It was a 1A. They would bounce back between 1A and 2A. They hadn't had a lot of success over the last couple of years, so they were really down in terms of success. But they had a really good core of players, and so when I went out and had a chance to meet the players, I knew that if they kind of got a little bit more exposure and played some better competition, and I really worked with them on the technique, I felt like we could get to where we needed to be. So our first year, we won 10 games. They were ecstatic. I was mad because I was used to winning more than that. But they were turning the corner. You know what I mean? They were competitive. They were turning the corner, and like you said, within 2 years we were 20 plus wins. We were ranked in the state in the regional championships, that type of thing. And yeah, we went to the state tournament in 2012. And they're pretty good. It was the first time they went to the state tournament in the school's history. And yeah, and you were with me because we were in the regional championships because you came out and coached with me one year, and which was it was a crazy year because the last second we were getting ready to start the season and my assistant coach just couldn't do it. She couldn't afford to not work a regular job because she had student loans to pay. And so I called you like last minute, and you were like, I don't know if I can do that. And I was like, hey, man, I just need somebody I trust, And you came out and helped me. We ended up in the regional championships against the Marshalltown St. Mary's. Almost won that game. So we almost won the state that year.
Yeah.
So
I was just thinking about that as you talked about your previous career, your career path. We was at Dowling together, Roosevelt together, Van Meter for 1 year.
Mhm.
And then that was the birth into me getting the job at North that next year.
Mhm.
So it was crazy. That was a crazy time. So so that happens at Van Meter. You were there how long? 5 years? 6 years?
5 years.
You there at Van Meter, and then you left there and went to where?
To Ankeny Centennial. Yeah.
Went to Centennial. Okay.
Yeah, Ankeny Centennial. So Ankeny had Ankeny was one of the biggest schools in the state. And just like Milwaukee is now, they got so big they needed to split into two different schools. So Ankeny split into Ankeny Centennial, which is on the north side, and Ankeny, regular Ankeny, which was on. What they really did was they had one school, and they turned that school into middle school, and they built two new schools. And so Ankeny became the one that's on the north side of town, and Ankeny Centennial became the one that's on the south side. I'm sorry, Ankeny Centennial's on the north side of town.
North side, yeah. And
And
Hawks is
Ankeny
on the
was
south side.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they were looking for somebody to take over the Centennial program. And I went out and applied and got hired for that position. Yeah. So that was exciting.
How was that interview process?
It was Ankeny's, they're more, I would say they're very progressive, so instead of having like maybe just, maybe in a smaller school where you may just interview with the principal athletic director or something like that, they had a panel, so they had a group of parents and they had, an administrator, the athletic director, principal, that kind of thing. So, and they were basically doing what you would see at a lot of colleges, I would say. They had a lot of people that applied for the job. They go through, dwindle it down to their top candidates, have callbacks, that kind of thing.
All right, good deal. Now if my mind serves me right, while you were at Centennial, you got a college job, correct?
No, actually before that.
Before that.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was before. I can't even remember if it was. I'm pretty sure it was my last year. It was my last year at Van Meter. I
Okay,
believe,
okay.
because AIB, it's the American Institute
Oh,
of Business. Yep,
I forgot all
NAI.
about the ID. Okay, okay.
Yep, NAI College in Des Moines. They closed now, but yeah, I was an assistant coach with Kim Wright Jones over there,
Yep.
and so yeah,
Good
that was my
lady.
first. Yeah, that was my first college coaching job. So I was
Okay.
doing that.
You're an
Now,
assistant.
yeah, I was doing that, coaching Van Meter, and I was actually still running that club program, the MSA as well. So yeah, it was a lot.
Ooh,
I didn't have an off season. Yeah.
man. So then you left AIB closed,
AIB closed after 2 years. So when I
right?
got hired at Centennial, I was coaching in college at Centennial as well. So actually, you're right. My first year coaching at AIB was my first year at Centennial, because
Okay.
I was at Centennial for 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah. So it was like the transition year. The first year was like, we play in the fall. We play have a fall season. In college, you have a fall season, spring season, then went into the summer season. That's when I went to Centennial. Then so we had one more year at AIB, and then after AIB closed, I was at Marshalltown Community College for 3 years. So
3 years. Okay.
I was at Centennial for 4.
So Marshalltown, and you were the head coach at Marshalltown Community College.
Yeah. Yep.
Gave you experience in the college ranks. Time spent there, was it okay? Good experience?
I learned a lot at Marshalltown. I mean, when I was at Marshalltown, my first 2 years, okay, let me just preface this by saying when I got to Marshalltown was rebuilding too, because they won 3 games. The year before I got there, they won 3 games. And to be more specific, they beat Ellsworth Community College 3 times, but they lost to them 4 times. So they beat one team 3 times that had beat them 4 out of the 7 times they played. So when I got there, the majority of the roster was gone because most of them either graduated or left. It's junior college, so 2-year turnover on a roster. So the good thing was that I was already out recruiting because I was at AIB before AIB closed, and so I'd already had some good contacts for some players. So we were able to fill that roster up. My first 2 years at Marshalltown, we won more games during that span than they had ever won over that span in the history of their program. So that was good. And then my 3rd year at Marshalltown, actually, you remember, I had a lung transplant, a little minor procedure. So I was gone the majority of our off season, came back, coached anyway. And we didn't have a great season, but it was decent. It was okay. Then I came to Clarke.
Go ahead. My bad. Listeners, if you didn't hear him right, he said a lung transplant. It was a double lung transplant. What we get into that a little bit later if the coach wants to, but double lung transplants, you don't find too many people walking around that's had that procedure done. No. So you said you 3 years at Marshalltown. Now you're at Clarke University. I see your assistant came in back there.
Yeah, finally got an assistant coach.
Hello back there. Good morning. I don't know her, but so you're at Clarke. This is year number.
We're going into year 4 here now. Yeah.
You're going to year 4. Okay.
Yeah.
So how's that experience been?
By far the best place I've been. Yeah, by far.
Oh, good deal.
I mean,
what
people
makes
have different experiences. I think, I've been coaching for a long time now. I mean, we talked about all these other things that I did, but, coaching in high school, you deal with different administrators and other coaches and players and parents. And, just as a whole, everybody's going to have different experience. Everywhere you go, you're going to have good things, bad things. But here, I just feel like, first of all, coaching staff's great. My assistant coach does a fantastic job, so I have a lot of support here. My athletic director knows how to allow his coaches to do what they need to do to help their programs be successful, and give us the autonomy we need to do our jobs without, you run into some ADs that, you know, they might as well try to coach because, you know, they're so hands-on that they kind of get in your way, you know, sometimes. I'm not saying all the time, but it's just a good coaching environment. You know, if you want to go somewhere to coach and just be able to do your job, that's what it's like here. You know, so it's a good culture. Not to mention on campus, it's a small campus, a little over 1,000 students. You know, everybody's like on a first name basis. I never thought I would live in Dubuque. You know, there's nothing wrong with Dubuque, but just growing up, I never thought I was going to live in Dubuque. But I ended up moving here. You know, and so yeah, just right now I'm really happy. I don't see myself going anywhere else.
So what separates, not trying to put you on the spot, but we've already talked about this in the past. What separates your program at Clarke, your softball program at Clarke versus, and not comparing to anybody, but what makes you guys different?
What separates any coaching, I think what separates any program is the culture of the school and the coaches. I mean, and that's just really all you can say because everybody, I mean, there's going to be certain things about a program that have nothing to do with the coaching staff. Budgets, I don't have anything to do with that. Facilities, I don't have much to do with that. Demographics, I don't have much to do with that. So really those things are, you know, if you're looking for a program, those things are going to be, I don't care who the coach, are going to be consistent. But the difference is, you know, what's your coach's personality like? You know, what's the assistant coach's personality like? You know, what are their goals? Are they truly trying to win? Are they putting winning before, you know, the culture of the team? Are they putting, you know, are they putting their career stats before your experience as a player? That kind of thing. So I think what separates us is I feel like we're grounded enough in understanding that the players matter first. We are invested in doing things the right way. And we want to win games, you know? And so I think when you add that, it creates a good environment. We talk about building the culture of the program a lot, which is great. Now we feel like our program is built here. And so, you know, I always grew up, you know, knowing that if you do things the right way, that you can walk away feeling like you gave everything your all. And everybody knows it the right way. It's those coaches that want to be in your face screaming, yelling, cussing, and doing stuff that they know that stuff's not good. You know, we don't do that. I feel like we do things that are driven by the right purpose, you know.
All right, good. That's good. So let's get to recruiting. Let's not right now. Let's flip the script a little bit and talk about what you look for, or what you and your staff looks for. You're going to recruit. What are you looking for?
Well, I mean, obviously we're looking for the best players we can find.
Right.
But character matters, and it matters a lot. I mean, we watch. I personally watch. What do you do when you strike out? You know, I watch how you interact with your teammates. I'll tell you what. When I first started recruiting, what Marshalltown taught me was you better recruit the right players, because if you recruit the wrong players, they'll tear your program apart. That's what I learned. And the reason why I learned that there was because Marshalltown was and I enjoyed my time in Marshalltown, and we had good players, but we had a couple bad apples along the way. And you know, when you start out recruiting at a place like Marshalltown, and I say Marshalltown because they're a small budget school, okay, a small budget school in a state that has a lot of other really good programs that have bigger budgets. So what would happen is, you know, we would lose kids to some of these other schools just on reputation alone. So it was harder to get kids to come to Marshalltown. Marshalltown was a good place to go. Education was priced right. We didn't have a big budget. So A, we couldn't offer a lot of money. And B, we were trying to get them to come someplace that didn't have the big reputation. And so as a result, when you're out recruiting, sometimes, you know, your roster is going to be, you know, 14 key players that you had to scrape, you know, to find. You'd have to travel all the way across the country to get 14 kids. And so sometimes you get kind of pulled into, I need bodies as opposed to I need the right players, you know.
Right.
And so you were selling the school more than you were trying to figure out, who the player was. Here, we're trying to figure out who the player is more so than just trying to say, "Hey, come here, we need you." We don't need to do that here. We have a strong enough reputation as a program where we're going to get plenty of people that walk through the door that want to play here. And it taught me to really, hey, slow down, know who you're recruiting, because if you want a program that has character, you got to know if those players have character when they get here. So that's been real important. If I had to give anybody any advice on recruiting, I'd say make sure you know whether that player is going to be somebody that's a distraction to your program or not, or you also have to make sure your culture is already in place, so that when they come, your culture is stronger than whatever they came with. So that way they, kind of get in line with what you're doing.
Oh, there you have it. There it is right there. So you've done a good job from what I've seen of coming. I mean, you lived here in the Des Moines area, but coming to the Des Moines area and recruiting some girls from this area.
Yeah.
Can you? I mean, you don't necessarily have to name them, but can you talk about that thought process as far as coming back to this area, recruiting girls from this area, and going from there?
Well, the Des Moines area, what I would say is Central Iowa has, really good softball. I mean, you want to talk about high-level softball, you're talking Valley High School, Dowling, Ankeny Centennial, Des Moines East has history, Des Moines Lincoln has history. I mean, the whole metro area. I mean, the CIML in general, not just Des Moines. Fort Dodge was amazing this year. The CIML as a whole just has a lot of talent. Okay. So for me, I'm familiar with that talent. Now I'm learning there's incredible talent all over Iowa too, but I was familiar with those programs. I know the level of competition that they face all the time. We get a lot of kids that come from some smaller schools, and it takes a little while for them to catch up to some of the pitching that they're going to see. Not that they don't see good pitching, but they just don't see it day in and day out like they might, when you're at a Valley or Johnston High School or something like that. So there's just a lot of value in seeing some of those kids that see that consistent level of play. So it's tough though, because Clarke, we sit in, so Dubuque is on eastern edge of Iowa. I mean, we literally sit on the border of Iowa and Wisconsin, Iowa and Illinois. So we're removed from the central Iowa area, and not everybody knows who we are. Grandview, if you say the name Grandview in Des Moines, everybody knows who it is. So some of those big name players in central Iowa, they're going to have an eye on Grandview. They don't know who we are. So it's important for me to get down there and start, being a little bit more visible. So when some of these players, hear about Clarke, they're like, oh, okay, let me go take a look. It's not the first time I've seen them, because our program, we're building a really strong program up here. And the other thing is Clarke's an exceptional academic school. So the opportunity to get an education from Clarke is something that these kids need to be looking at. So they need to start getting that name recognition. And I would love to get Clarke's name out there a little bit more so that they, so they have these opportunities. I'm telling you that I have 4 kids. They all went to college, and at some point anyway, and this is an education here that a lot of kids in Iowa need to start taking advantage of.
That's a good point. You have, I've been on campus, and I'm not saying, I know you're talking about, this softball of your experience, but they have a brand new football program, correct? Is it a year old or 2 years old?
No, we're going on this will be the 3rd year competition.
3rd year, okay, 3rd year. All right.
Yeah, now keep in mind, last year.
Brand new program, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's 3rd year.
Okay.
But yeah, they had, just like everybody else, they had a year that was affected by COVID, but we had our coach here, Coach Regalado, he's an amazing coach. He's doing a fantastic, he brought in 75 freshmen, I think it is this year.
Yeah, 75?
75 freshmen. Yeah, he's doing an amazing job up here recruiting the players. I mean, all he talks about is doing things the right way. He's building a tough team. I think he's going to do it. He's going to do an amazing. He came from Baker University, and you know, he's got the right pedigree as a coach. He knows what he's trying to build. Yeah, he's doing an amazing job.
Wow. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you, like as far as recruiting or, you know, can they email you? Can they call you? What can they do?
Yeah, I mean, you know, anybody, we get tons of emails all the time. We go through all of them. So yeah, they can email me. It's just my first and last name, garland.shirley@clarke.edu. That's it. Just reach out to me.
Do you have on your website, is there a what do you call it? The player profile or player not profile?
Yeah.
I'm saying the wrong thing.
No, I know what you're talking about. We have a recruiting form so if you go to
questionnaire.
Clarke, yeah. So if you go to Clarke with an E, CLARKE, pride.com, that's our athletic website right now. Okay, so if you go there, you can look at all of our sports. You can look at the softball roster schedule, things like that. But you can also find our questionnaire on that website. So if you fill that out, it's the same thing. Send me an email because we'll check. I get it. It comes directly to me. My assistant coach gets a copy of it, I think, as well. And so we go through those and we reach out to those players. And you know, it's easy to set up a visit because you can go straight to our website. If you go to clarke.edu, I think on the very first page it says set up an undergraduate visit. So if you wanted to come up and see Clarke and take a tour, you could do that, or you can do it virtually now. Ever since COVID, things have gotten a lot easier for people to see, so you can set up a virtual visit too. You know, and even if you're, you know, we have players that are in California, you know, who couldn't come, you know, couldn't fly down here right away, but they can set up a visit, and you know, we'll sit in there and chat just like we're doing right now. We can talk about everything they need to know. Obviously, we want to get them on campus because you want to make sure that, you know, this is a good fit for me. But they can talk to professors. They can talk to somebody from admissions. You know, they get a chance to talk to as many people as they need to.
Wow, that's awesome, and I can vouch for on-campus visit because we've been there. My daughter's been there. Mm-hmm. You know, she chose a different path, but she's been on campus. Beautiful campus. It seems like a really good place.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love it.
One last current events. Now, you could talk about something, whatever you want, but I kind of want to give. I got to bring this up, and I should have had it up on here, but I need to remember what I sent you the other day with those guys in Waterloo. What them guys are doing?
Yeah.
With the UniQ.
Yep.
UNI UniQ. Yep. I just want to give them guys a quick shout out. This is the article. It's in the Waterloo Courier, and I mean we're both from Waterloo, so UniQ's talent search, hoping to engage more Black males with help of new staff. And there's a picture of Carlos Frazier, senior counselor, Jonathon Cox, coordinator of trio programs, Astor Williams, educational counselor, and DeCarlos Anderson, director. I just want to give a shout out to Andrew Wind wrote the article, but I read the article. It's good. There's people down there working, trying to do stuff for our African American males, and they also talked about in this article about a focus on African American male athletes that are struggling in school. So I think this is good work. It's a good article. I might link it in the description. I'll put the link in the description because it's a really good article. To read. It's not very long, but it just talk about some positive things that are going on down in Waterloo, which you know, my mom is still in Waterloo. Your mom's still in Waterloo. It's there's some work needs to be done, but we both know that, you know.
Yeah. Well, I could talk about that for a couple. I do have a meeting in about 10 minutes, but I want to talk about the article just a little bit because the article more specifically is about I want to say it's about UniQ. Is that right?
Yeah, UniQ. Yep.
Okay. So I remember, because I won't say I was a product of UniQ, but where UniQ was at, they ran Trio. And Trio is a program that includes, it's an umbrella kind of program that includes Upward Bound,
Right.
Bridge. Upward Bound is a program that kind of connects high school students with some different colleges. And I don't want to talk about all of it. I'm not associated with, so I can't tell you the structure of it. But what I can tell you is I was in Upward Bound. And so Upward Bound is an educational program that helps start gearing kids towards college. And so, especially those kids that are underserved in some of those some communities that are kind of underserved. So my exposure to college at that time came through Upward Bound. So I can tell you, basically, I would not have gone to college. I would not have finished college. I would probably have never even thought it was a possibility had I not gone through that program in Upward Bound. At that time, the directors there was a guy named Tony Stevens, if you remember, was a wrestler from Waterloo East as well. Tony Stevens and Wilfred Johnson, called him Mickey. Wilfred was the director of Upward Bound. But basically, we took college classes every summer. So here I was, a high school student, sophomore, junior, and I was taking college classes and getting credit for it too, when I was in high school. So I was getting exposed to a lot of stuff I would have never thought I would get exposed to, just from a higher thinking standpoint and a forward thinking standpoint in terms of what am I going to do with my career, and where am I going to go to college at, things like that. And so it takes some people in some positions that, who may have never been exposed to, the opportunity to go to colleges, and gives them a chance to do something they probably would have never done. So if I could recommend to any young kid, that maybe they were in a disadvantaged situation or something like that, to get involved in something, Upward Bound or Trio would be, it's a good program. Yeah.
Wow.
And I believe,
man, we've been friends 30-some years. I didn't know. I knew you was in UniQ, but I didn't know you were taking classes during the summers.
Yeah, every summer. I met a lot of guys, that I'm still friends with today from Upward Bound. I think Jonathon Cox, was that his name? I don't know him.
Jonathon Cox is actually the director of Trio programs now. According to this article.
Was he from UNI? Didn't he come from UNI? I think I remember the name. UNI.
Yeah.
I know Astor Williams is a Waterloo guy. I think he went to Waterloo West. DeCarlos, I think he was from Waterloo. Those are all local guys.
Local guys, yeah.
I remember hearing, when I grew up. So it's good to see him, down there and continuing that program.
Cox is actually from Springfield, Illinois. He's a UNI graduate and played basketball for the Panthers, but he returned to Cedar Valley 26 years ago to work for his alma mater. So
that's what I thought.
Yeah, but I mean, this is it looks like a group of guys that are coming together to trying to make change, effect change. So
yeah,
this is good.
Yeah, this
is really good.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you got a meeting. Is there anything else on the you want to say or talk about, or I mean, this
I think it's a good thing. I appreciate you taking your time to. We talk all the time anyway, but I think this is a good thing. I'm looking forward to maybe getting some different people on there and seeing some different perspectives. I think
we need to make a list and see who we can who we can get on here and just go from there and just have, learn about their backgrounds and then talk about some current events and go from there.
Oh, I got a long list for you.
All right. I appreciate it.
All right. I got to get going. I got a meeting here. It's going to start in 5 minutes. So.
All right. Well, thank you.
Have a good day.
Have a good one.
Yep.
Yep.